handles like an Ashley. And I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Pocket Jack Comics. And they are coming to a local comic store near you this month and next month. So with a bunch of really cool books, a bunch of sexy books, and I've seen some of the covers. And I must say that Preston did a great job. Where this is like Kickstarter sexy bad girl art covers in your local comic shop at reasonable prices. And so if you actually go to pocketjackcomics.com right now and sign up for their email list, you could actually try before you buy by signing up for their email list. They will send you a free PDF copy of the book. So this way you can get a sense of what you're going to buy and get some awesome art in the process, as well as this episode is brought to you by my friends over at The Living Dead Girl, which is under a lot of controversy. You know, if you haven't been paying attention to indie comics, there's 20 hours left on that campaign. And let's just say that reward 4 might be worth money. You didn't hear from me. A lot of stuff's going on with that. And if you know what's going on in the indie scene, you know what's going on with that. But that is from Jason Connolly and Greg Bo Watson. And it's cool because Greg Bo, it's his first character design in almost 20 years. So that's pretty cool right there. But enough about that, because I have with me comic creator Rob Multari. I think this is your 5th or 6th time now.
Yeah, we're getting up there.
So you got a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, you got Snowpaw is kind of front and center. So what is the basic premise of Snowpaw before we dive too much into this? Because I want to catch everybody up, because people are returning, seeing this, you and me do this again for the 5th or 6th or 7th time at this point. And then there are people who know what Snowpaw is, and there are people saying, what the fuck's Snowpaw?
Right on. Well, yeah, I mean, I think, and it's been a while since we have done a Snowpaw. Basically, Snowpaw is a spin-off series that stemmed from Nightwolf, which is my first title. And in that story, it takes place in a modern times, and Snowpaw is Nightwolf's mentor. Well, a lot of my fans, my audience, my wolf pack, if you will, loved Snowpaw as a character and wanted to have an origin story. So here we basically went back 200 years. In the 19th century, a fierce heroine with an adventurous spirit nearly gives in to the social expectations of her time, but a trite fairy tale ending is not meant to be, as Cyrilla McKinley discovers her werewolf lineage. Her eyes are open to the existence of supernatural beings and creatures of fantasy.
Sounds like it was read off of a Kickstarter page. I'm sorry. It's too easy. It's too easy. But I do want to dive into this, because obviously a lot of stuff is going on. And you kind of said it, where it's Snowpaw's origin story of her coming from kind of just living, somewhat of a European farm girl life. Mm-hmm. Her life's not bad. Her life is not the best it could be, but it's good, and she seems happy. And she kind of discovers that she is of this clan that is a pureblood. And then you're kind of attacked, and you're brought into this supernatural world, and you have to, the power, I guess, found you, and that you live in a very different world that isn't so pretty. Is a good way how I put it. And kind of, you got to figure out your powers. You got to figure out what you're fighting against. You got a mission now, and you're now, you have a calling, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, back in like the 19th century, women didn't have a lot of freedoms. That was well before equal rights and all that, especially in Europe. And the farm life in Scotland at the time was rough. People were fleeing the Highlands, and moving to the Americas, and so it was a rough time period for farmers. She had been betrothed to a rich man's son to save the farm. She wasn't happy about it at the beginning, but then she kind of got a taste for the life. She always had a thirst for adventure. So I think she kind of saw that this is being that chance to get that. But just as she was kind of settling into the thought of this happening, upon returning to her family home, her family's attacked by werewolves, and triggers her first transformation. And I can't really spoil too much, what happens to the family, but let's just say that there's, it gives her the reason to kind of go out and learn how to fight and
Let's actually talk about this,
yeah.
because the whole thing and how I view Snowball. And I mean, I remember the first issue because I read the first issue, and it's kind of the idea, and the way I view it is that she doesn't, and I say it the way I say it is that her life isn't great. It's not bad either. It's just kind of, I guess, what a normal life is, and there's
Yeah,
no
for that
real,
time period, yes.
there's no real danger. And then she now discovers this power. Her family gets attacked. She meets a mentor, and now she is being subjected to danger,
Mhm.
but she also has to learn her powers. And that's what's so interesting, is that this is kind of that story
Right.
where we get this idea where we don't have an overpowered character who is invincible from the start. We get a character who's like, I can be a werewolf. What the hell?
Yeah.
And and we have this evil group of people over here. I legitly just learned what I am, and I don't even know how to do that thing. And we gotta kick their ass over there. Like, and this is kind of what this book is to some degree. And so, what is that like? Because it's kind of nice to see this go from issue 1 to issue 2 to issue 3, and really her starting to master her powers and slowly evolving from this dainty little trophy, for lack of a better word, to now being, I don't want to say a killer, but a fighter. It might be a better word to put it,
Well, I
because
mean, and if you see it in the first issue, like she's no just like pushover either. Like she has natural instinct. Especially the scene where she's hunting the deer, and she basically just takes it down with a hunting knife, and then she carries it back. So that's kind of like showing her animalistic nature before she even realizes it. You know what I mean? And then like moving through issue 2 and 3, you definitely see the growth of her going from the first transformation, her first battle, and then going into a training scene. So like in issue 3, Silvermane, her mentor, puts her to the test. Like he tests her mettle, and there's like a 3-page scene of her going through these training routines and just getting slammed against things or getting smashed against the face, just a whole, rigmarole of learning the new agility, fighting style. And there's like a 1-page scene where she finally, it all clicks and she gets through, so it's a cool transition to watch. And I love watching the hero build themselves up from nothing, because I feel like when you start in the middle of a story, or like you just kind of like get thrown into it and you're already the superpowered badass, then you're kind of like, well, how did you get there? That was something that growing up, I started with Batman, right? I got thrown into Batman when Batman was already Batman for decades, right? But
so let's actually talk about this, and I don't mean to cut you off, because right now manga is really popular, and we get this thing, and I'm on a One Piece kick. So I just started rereading One Piece. We have Luffy, and he's 16 or 17. So we know he's been through some stuff, and we get some flashbacks that kind of explains how he became, ate the gum fruit, or the Mika Mika fruit, if you want to call it that. Sorry to ruin it, everybody. Spoiler alert. If you didn't know, now you do. But all jokes aside, what it is that we see Luffy and Nami and Zoro and Sanji and Chopper all grow as characters all the way up to chapter 1110. So it's nice to see this, but then you were saying you got thrown right in the middle of Batman.
right.
And we don't see what made Batman, become Batman. We don't know the League of Shadows. We don't know any of that. We also don't know, we know that it's sort of leaked that Batman is an orphan, but you might not know that in a Batman story.
Yeah, when you first get thrown into it, you don't know, that's, I think, why I appreciated the Christopher Nolan, Batman Begins, because we actually got to see that growth. You know what I mean? Like throughout the movie.
So what is this like though? Because I think there is an element to doing something linear, because it's cool to, have an issue with a superhero for 4 issues. They're just dealing with the problem and their powers exist. And somebody does a flashback or an origin story. But there's also something where, hey, we're building in a linear fashion and we're kind of stacking brick on brick on brick on brick. First saying, we got a story here, and then let's tell how this character got their powers in a one shot, 3 years later after we completed the series or the first miniseries. I think there's something to be said about doing it the way you're doing it. And I think it's an issue sometimes in comics and in indies is that, great, we got these characters, and I get that he wanted to tell the story first. She felt that it was the money story, but then you do your origin and then kind of falls a little bit short, and it feels like it's kind of like putting a square peg into a circle.
Right. Well, with Nightwolf, I got a little bit of both, because like Nightwolf is his origin story, but we already see Snowpaw in her full maturity. So she's already super badass in Nightwolf. This gives me the opportunity to take that back and to show her origin story, which is nice in a sense, because then that gives me like that 200-year period to show her growth from the beginning to where she meets up with Nightwolf.
So let's even dive into that too, because I'm a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan. I love Korra. Korra was great. Season 1 and season 3 were the best. I'll debate anybody on those topics. If you thought season 2 was great, and we all knew who I'm speaking to, if you don't know who I'm talking to, who said that, you just watch our YouTube channel. It's right front and center who said it. And then they did the Kyoshi books, which is about 400 years before Avatar: The Last Airbender. And there's rules in the world of Avatar. And there's rules in the world of Nightwolf and Snowpaw. But obviously, 200 years in Scotland, they might not have an iPhone that exists in Rodney's world. So obviously, rules can change as far as technology. I don't think that 200 years ago in Scotland, they had airplanes that can fly to London in 5 hours.
No, of course not.
So obviously those rules change, but there are other rules that don't change. And so what is that like? Because I would imagine to some degree you could bend some rules because you have 200 years of time to play with, but you also can't bend other rules, such as if a werewolf dies by getting shot by a silver bullet, I don't think 200 years ago they would be immune from that.
No, well, I mean, mine's so the way I do silver, because I take the lore and I change it up a little bit. Silver, they are allergic to it.
I was just making an example. You could pick anything you want.
No, but that's all right, because people out there want to know what makes my werewolves different, right? And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about my werewolf books. So to continue that, they're allergic to silver, yes, but they can die if they get their brain damaged or their heart damaged beyond repair. So it's not like they need a silver bullet to kill. Basically, like I said, if you damage a heart or brain enough, it doesn't matter. There's no regeneration. But yes, to an extent where it comes about, like, I have a certain mythology that I've created in my universe. They both follow that same, though it's not as the world hasn't opened up as much in Nightwolf because it's more of a tight story. Whereas Snowpaw gives me that ability to open up my world and show more of, that mythology.
Did you also feel that because there's a 200-year gap, and I don't know how much stuff comes before Snowpaw in your world, because obviously they're fighting the Dark Covenant, and they're fighting a sector of the Dark Covenant. So I don't know when the Dark Covenant came into existence, if it's been there for 1,000 years before this, because I would imagine that there is an ability to have more development or less development with the Dark Covenant.
Oh, yeah. There's so much. Yeah.
Oh, please, you go.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, because like even I have the first initial werewolves plotted out in my head, how they came about. I kind of hint at it a little bit in Nightwolf, but not like I don't deep dive into it. So it's like I have that, and I mean that's like almost like towards the beginning of like time, almost. You know what I mean? Like of creation, if you will. Like a lot of this stuff, with the way my celestial hierarchy is, the development of the world and the mythologies. So I have all that. It just is, I don't want to give it all up right away. Like I like sprinkling it along where it feels natural. You know what I mean? So like when, as a reader, you're getting bits and pieces here instead of the whole cake.
Do you also feel, because do you feel that you could even have something before Snowpaw after you're done?
Oh
With
yeah, I could keep going back farther and farther. Like it's funny, like because it's almost like Witchblade. When Michael Turner started with her, but then he did the Tales of the Witchblade and kept going back.
The reason why I bring this up is that Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan. They did the first series and it did really well. Then they did a bunch of graphic novels and said, we're going to make a sequel. And they made a sequel that takes place 60 years later after Aang dies. I'm sorry, Aang's the Avatar. He had to die, and then you get a new Avatar.
Right.
He had to go.
Yeah.
You had no workaround. You had no workaround.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, we got 60 years. Aang lived for 160, guys. I'm sorry. There was no workaround. He had to go. Sokka, on the other hand, I was very upset to find out he died. Very upsetting. I cried for like a good 2 minutes. But it only took 2 minutes. But anyway, the point is that they then went back 400 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think is interesting, is that, I mean, I'm just curious if you're going to go even further back beyond Snowpaw, because you technically could, because there's other werewolf stories, and you go all the way to the originals. You go back to how, the Dark Covenant. You could have a whole, mini series just about the Dark Covenant and how it started over a poker game. But that's probably how it started. I mean, that's just what I think. All jokes aside, though, but you're sprinkling stuff in, but I would also imagine that when you're creating a world, and I guess the question, and going back to seriousness here, is what exactly do you sprinkle in when you do have the option to go back another 200 years, or go back 50 years, or even go forward 50 years and have something that's, a one shot of the Dark Covenant that maybe you don't want to sprinkle in, because you have a good and bad problem where if you sprinkle something in and then you exhaust it in Snowpaw, it might be a great, one shot or a great mini series somewhere else. And that could be very tricky to figure out when you're world building, what to actually put where and what's going to benefit Nightwolf, help Snowpaw, but also potentially help third, fourth, or I don't know, is it Tri-Terry or I forget the word. It's a wrestling title for that third title. But that I would imagine is an interesting problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what focal point is the most interesting. Obviously, like a standalone Dark Covenant origins would be interesting, but also like the actual origins of the werewolves. To kind of hint at it, there's 4 original werewolves, and all werewolves stem from them. But the way they were I actually started writing a novel early on, in the middle of writing Nightwolf when I was in my college days, and I part of me wanted to keep it separate, but then the other part of me was like, well, this is actually a perfect tie-in. So I ended up just keeping it as that's the back lore. So whether or not I do it as a novel or a graphic novel or a comic series, that's hasn't been decided yet. Mostly, I think because I love the medium of comics and graphic novels, it'll probably go that way. But again, I have plenty of time to play with, and
you understand. I mean, you understand why I'm asking the question, because I think it's really interesting when you start building a world. So when somebody has their flagship comic and they have however many issues they're going to do, whether it's 4 issues, 8 issues, they're planning to do 50 issues, and then you bring in a secondary one that's in the same world that has a linear connection, where this has, I mean, obviously you could put a bunch of titles in between Snowpaw and Nightwolf technically, but right now Snowpaw leads right into Nightwolf with a 200-year gap, give or take. But what happens in Snowpaw is going to affect some elements of Nightwolf.
Oh yeah, down the line, there's definitely you know, particularly there is a character in Snowpaw that he does make an appearance in Nightwolf already, and he will, after the first story arc is over, he will become a play for the power vacuum, if you will, within the Dark Covenant.
I mean, I was even just thinking about the fact that Snowpaw is, you know, as the enemy of the Dark Covenant, and they're hunting down a Dark Covenant sector or unit, or I guess office. We could call it an office. I mean, you know, and so I'm laughing because it's kind of funny the way I just said it. But it's the idea that obviously this is a war between these purebreds and the Dark Covenant for power, protection, ideology, you know, justice, whatever you want to call it. And so it's really interesting because you have a linear connection now. And this is why I find that when you start sprinkling stuff in there, like that affects everything in a lot of ways. And it affects what you can do in the back end, the front end, even after potentially after Nightwolf. Or you got 200 years. I mean, in 200 years, a lot of shit could happen. A lot of shit happens in 200 years.
Well, and that's like, and I also have 3 other titles that originally was going to be done before I even conceived the thought of having a Snowpaw series, which there's like a world-ending event that these 4 titles come together, you know, kind of Avenger style, but not really. It's kind of, they don't become a team, if you will, but like they do have to work together to end this this world-ending event. But all the mythology ties into each other. These characters all have like, so this, not only like the Snowpaw has the ability to play in Nightwolf, it could also, because it's so far back, I could also dabble in the other stuff as well.
Yeah, see, this is just so interesting. It's so interesting in which that I enjoy things that boost each other, and proliferate with each other, and cast a spell that gives you a +2 attack bonus. I've been playing a lot of D&D and a lot of Magic the Gathering lately as well. Way too much. When you're rolling those dice, you need a 6 to get a plus, you know, 2 attack to defeat your enemy. Very helpful. But I digress right there. But like, I just think it's interesting because you've now expanded a product line, and even to go into the business side of things, I think that's the other thing that sometimes people don't realize is that if you have things that directly connect with each other and products that directly connect with each other, it becomes easier to make a larger sale. And as you get more and more and more of this stuff, you know, somebody might be like, yeah, I'm not feeling Snowpaw, but they say, well, it is 200 years and they like Nightwolf. They might have to pick up Snowpaw because to get the whole story and get the whole lore and get other components that might not necessarily be in Nightwolf at the moment, or if it might never be in Nightwolf but are relevant to Nightwolf, you need to pick up another issue. So what is that like? Because I think that's where sometimes indie comics messes up, when people have stories inside their world, but they're all scattered and they don't cross over or they don't have relevance. I mean, nothing against Tom, but I think certain stories with Tom, they're in the same world, but like there's no relevance for Penny for Your Soul to deal with Critter or some minor. And I'm kind of like, it'd be interesting if Critter was in legitly. Think about this, right? And this is a crazy idea for Tom, but even for anybody else. What if Critter legitly in the middle of a fight with Ursa Minor just walked across the page? It sounds insane, the idea, but she was legitly in the book, walking across the page, right in the background, and there was no mention of anything else, had nothing else, but just had a cameo.
Yeah.
That would say, okay, they're in the same world, and it would confirm it. It'd be fun.
And that's kind of like what I did with Nightwolf issue 2. Those 3 other titles that I have kind of hanging fruit waiting for me to pluck them do make an appearance in Nightwolf issue 2, just to kind of like tie in that this is a bigger universe and they do exist in the same place. And actually I've had people be like, hey, when are these characters coming into play here? And it's like, I'm working on it.
You know? I think if you're playing in bigger worlds and you're playing in a central universe, you need to put your characters in there, even if they don't necessarily cross over with each other. I think that's a big issue. And I think it's a very complicated issue. If I was to build a universe that had 4 or 5 superheroes that are all in the same universe, I would want that character to cross over. Even if you have a bar scene and the character's at the end of the bar just grabbing a beer.
Or
You
even
at
like
least
how like some of the Marvel entities, they connected they by mention. Like they may not necessarily have a cameo of like Thor, but they mention him in some kind of snarky manner. You know what I mean? Like just to kind of to relate that this is related to something we've already seen.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a Big Bang, and maybe I'm messing up the episode, but Leonard might have been gone for 3 or 4 episodes, and then Sheldon was saying, "Did you see that Leonard organized my Lord of the Ring collection in the wrong way?" He's like speaking to somebody else about it, but he mentions that Leonard did it, and Sheldon's upset, and then he can't call Leonard because Leonard is not there.
Yeah.
But you know that Leonard is still in the show, where he said, "Do you see what he did?" And Sheldon showed like he put number 2 and number 3, number 3 and number 2, and then he put 1 at the back end, and he put 3 in the front, and 2 still in the middle, but it's in the wrong order, and it's great because you're mentioning it and you're still giving credibility to the character.
Yeah, I think that might have been when he went to when he was on that Arctic or snowman. He was like up.
Yes,
yeah.
that is the episode. It's great. It's great. Then like he's like talking to the FBI agent about it too. Oh, that whole episode was
And there's just like.
And then like Sheldon wanted it to get arrested for it. Oh, that whole episode was great. But that's the type of thing that I think when you're building bigger worlds, it's a problem, and it drives me crazy. And it's bad writing, is what it is. And I cannot support bad writing. It's the number one reason why I don't back people's Kickstarters. It's not the money. It's not because I'm poor or broke. It's bad writing. I refuse to support bad habits. I'm sorry. I'm a man of principle. I don't know where you stand on these issues, but I'm a man of principle.
Yeah, I think for me, it's story first. Art to catch my attention, and then story to keep me going. And if you can't keep my attention with the story, then I usually kind of bow out.
If you don't have your commas right, I can't do it. You get 1 pass on the comma, you get 1 pass on a period. But if I find it, your book goes right into the bin. When we get 20 books in the bin, usually during winter, we put the bin out in wintertime, and we light that bin up on fire, and we make some marshmallows. I'm sorry. I'm a man of principle, guys. I am a man of principle, and I will stand by my principles. But we won't do it in the summer. Because if we do it in the summer, it defeats the point of creating heat. we have to be energy efficient and practical.
So no summertime camp s'mores for you, huh? Only winter?
No. We can make s'mores. We just make it on the grill. I mean, why would you bring out a gigantic bin and burn comic books in the summertime when you don't really need heat? It's hot enough. Why would I want to increase the temperature? That's just inefficient. It's just absolutely inefficient. If I am defeating bad writing and I'm able to provide heat and then make marshmallows in conjunction with the heat, and my heating bill goes down by 5 cents, it's a productive trade for all parties involved. I mean, this is just about efficiency. It has nothing to do, because clearly you need to destroy the bad writing. I mean, I hope everybody knows that I don't do this for real. I hope everybody takes that. But if I do, it'd be great.
I mean, you've thought it out, though. I mean,
I think a lot of things out. I think everything out. This whole interview was thought out. Just because I don't act on my thoughts does not mean that it wasn't thought out. But this is terrible. This is terrible. This show used to be really good. It used to be really good. But I digress. But I actually do, because we are actually heading to the business side of things a little bit, and I think it's interesting because obviously you run a very tight comic, and a very business centric comic as well. And I think it's interesting because I think you have to at this point. I mean, I think you've obviously raised over 100,000 on Kickstarter
Well,
after.
yeah, I'm well over 150 on Kickstarter.
And so obviously you have to, I mean, that's actually not true technically. There's plenty of people who have raised 150, 200,000 who are living, hand to mouth on economics, are barely making any money, if at all making any money, are barely breaking even. But the people who tend, because raising a lot of money doesn't mean that you're making a lot of money or you're running efficient businesses. But I think you are running a relatively efficient one at this point. I think you have it pretty down tight as far as art goes, art costs, understanding what rewards to offer, understanding printing qualities and quantities. And so, what is this like? Because I think that's a massive problem right now in indie comics is the lack of business skills, the lack of understanding business, the lack of even how to be professional. I think it is also a problem. And I don't think professional necessarily is at a con. I think professional is how to respond to emails, how to respond to interviews, how to ask for people. I mean, I can't tell you one of my biggest pet peeves is someone's like, I have a book. Do you have a spot on your show? I'm like, what's your book? You're not giving me anything and you're making my life harder. And I'm like, great, what's your book? And then I also say, cool, like, what's your following? How much money you raise? Because at this point, I cut up content and there's a million other things that go into this. And I'm like, your book doesn't interest me. And I don't think it's going to move the needle. And if I'm interviewing a top voice actor, where do you fit into this equation? And so I think that's a massive problem is that there's a lack of business skills right now in the industry for a lot of people.
Well, I think too, like there's so many people that come from so many different types of backgrounds, right? For me, like my full-time job, I'm a web and graphic designer who works for a marketing department. And I've worked for marketing departments my entire career, right? So I learned how to market from them and from them asking me for assets, asking me for websites, asking me for social content, asking me for emails. Like, so this is stuff I learned as I went. And being a graphic designer, like I know printing stuff, that was something I learned in college. Like that was I graduated from college in 06 when printing was still more important than a lot of the social media stuff. Now it's the other way around. But but then you have like somebody who's, let's just say their background is in like they were a nurse who wanted to write a comic book, right? Well, they don't have that marketing background, they don't have that business background, they have their nursing background, and they're just trying to tell a story, right? They know how to deal with patients, but they don't know how to deal with artists, so it's kind of like you have to learn as you go. And if you don't learn, pick up things, ask questions, and you just jump in and assume you know what you're doing, I think that tends to kind of like, as you say, that's not professional, and it tends to kind of steer you away from, potential.
I mean, I'm going to challenge a little bit because when I started doing interviews 10, 11 years ago, I jumped in and I figured it out. I legitimately jumped straight into the middle of it. I just asked. I just was asking as a decent person, saying, hey, I'm just starting out. I would love to interview you. I'm a big fan of yours. I love your work. Do you want to do an interview? And I just asked a lot of people, and I just kept going, and I just, shot what I thought was a professional email out. And then, you shoot out, and surprisingly, a bunch of top people are like, yeah, I would love to come on. Because I wasn't an asshole and I treated it professionally. But then I also figured out how to edit better. I figured out how to do social media, and I just kind of jumped in. But I also looked at other people, and I've also come to the conclusion where, sometimes you can only do what you can do. There is a limit on how far I can go with certain things. And media collectively has become a disaster where everybody is a media station. And so I've taken a different approach where I'm just building out a massive library, and I will win on the back end because I don't foresee and I don't know how I can compete with somebody who has 6 million followers on Twitter or Instagram.
Right.
But I think that I can create content that's evergreen that over the next 40 years will generate tens of thousands of views and my objective is to create hundreds, if not thousands, of those. But I also think that that's part of the problem, is that we are in a instant gratification position as well. And I think that people are like, I'm going to go create a comic, I'm going to do $1 million. Versus saying, I'm going to go create a comic, it's going to cost me $4,000 to do it. My objective is to raise $3,000 on Kickstarter crowdfunding, and then print an additional 150 of them and sell that extra 150 at conventions, eBay, to, you know, maybe work out deals with people who are like myself selling comics. And I'm going to go figure out how to make my money on the front end and the back end. And I think that's also the problem too, is that people aren't saying what is real and what can be done.
Yeah, I think people see like those big high paying Kickstarters and they're like, oh yeah, I can do that. That's great. I'm going to do that exact same thing. And then they expect the same results. But where usually these, you know, those big high paying Kickstarters have put their time in, they put their years in, you know.
I agree. I also think that they are doing things that are interesting. And I also think that they're spending money, some of these people. So if you see a campaign that does 50,000, but they have 25 variants.
Oh yeah, that's half, like that's half of the 20, you know, they're right there.
So, and then they're hiring somebody like Paul Green or Jamie Tyndall or Mike DeBaffo or Keith Garvey or RB White or, you know, Sanku Manaki. All of a sudden, you're now saying, okay, they're doing a lot of money, but they're not making that. And I think we tend to see, and I don't know what I see it, maybe I don't want to speak for you, but if you're putting in real money into a cover and you have 6 covers and you spent $9,000, all I see is that you did $20,000. I don't see that you put half of that into producing the book.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you especially if you slap that on a credit card beforehand and you got to pay that off.
I mean, I know, because I have a big credit card bill coming and it's stressful. I get paid Friday. It's stressful because I'm glad I bought what I bought and it's good for my business, but it is stressful. It is stressful. Yeah. I can tell you that. I don't sleep.
I totally get it. I because I pay my artists up front before we go live, you know, so you know, I'm banking on this to get funded so that I can pay off things and then do the print run.
All I know is that putting things on your credit card is it's exhausting. It's exhausting. But you probably made the biggest mistake, is that I don't know if you credit card churn. Did you do that?
No.
Oh my God, I'm about to change your life. So what you need to do is that you need to start building out a binder full of credit cards. You hear me out on this? It's insane. But every credit card should have a mission based on reward points and things that you get, and also bonuses you get when you put a certain amount of money within 6 months on your credit card.
Right.
So I have a lot of credit cards. So when I'm making big purchases, I need to make $250 worth of purchases. So I'm buying a print run or $700 worth of comics for my business, I open up a new credit card and then I put it on there and I get $200 back as a bonus. And you apply that $200 to that thing. So it really only cost me $500, but I spent $700. But then I put my cell phone bill on it because that credit card gives me $600 of cell phone protection if this little puppy breaks.
Well, doesn't that, like, if you keep opening up though, doesn't that like lower your credit score and then you keep getting like less and less? Like,
not really, actually. If you actually have more debt and you slowly pay off your credit card, your credit card score goes up. And if you don't actually get late payments on your credit card, it doesn't affect your credit card score all that much. In fact, it increases it over time. But I don't really care. I don't really care about my credit score because I have the capital to do it. I'm just trying to find ways how to reduce my expenditure on my business. Also, I have credit cards, so I'm looking forward to getting a lot of air miles. So there are credit cards that will give you 5x air miles. So let's say you want to take a trip and you have a family and you have 2 kids and your wife, you might be able, if you're doing a bunch of Kickstarters, you're doing 3 or 4 of them and you're spending, you know, $13,000 a year, you might be able to get 5x air miles, and all of a sudden you're going to Florida for free. So because certain cards have 5x air miles within their first year,
right,
for every dollar you spend, and so now your vacation just got reduced in half, but you're still paying your credit card and you're still doing the practice. hence the position of credit card churning.
Right.
It's sick. It's sick. Again, this is not financial advice, and I don't recommend people do it unless you are disciplined and you are like me and you're a little crazy. I mean, I got a spreadsheet, I got a binder. It's great. It's like a collection. I'm a baseball card collector and I'm a credit card collector. And the best part is that like if you get a credit card from Disney, you could choose your credit card. So I can't wait till I get back to the dating scene because I have a Tinkerbell credit card.
Nice.
So this is gonna be the best thing ever. This is how I'm gonna know she's the
Disney
one.
Card's Chewbacca.
Yeah, right. So this is how I'm gonna know she's the one, right? I'm gonna pay for it like at Applebee's, and I'm just gonna make sure that I flash my credit card. And if she's really like, man, this guy's got a Tinkerbell credit card, what the fuck? And she's like really into me. She's like, hey, do you want to take me home like now? I'm like, for the win. It's gonna be great. If she's like, what the fuck? He's got a Tinkerbell credit card. Yeah, can we just like get out of here quickly? Like, she's not the one. So
yeah, it's a simple
test. It's a test, everybody. But I digress. Getting back to the business side of things. I mean, because you run a tight ship, and I think it going back to that whole thing before we got on this big tangent about me giving really bad financial advice to everybody. I am not responsible for your decisions. You are responsible for your decisions. This is not financial advice. And don't do it if you don't feel comfortable, is all I'm going to say. I believe I legally protect myself now. But hey.
Your financial advisor.
No, if you want that service, I'm expensive. I don't want to be anybody's financial advisor. But stories I could say. But seriously, getting back to this though, what is this like? Because I think you figured out how many variants you want. I think you figured out what price you can pay for this stuff. Mm-hmm. I think you also figured out merch. I also think you figure out what to do with a lot of your higher end tiers. And what is that like? Because I think that's a massive problem too right now, is that you kind of have to know how much something costs and how much margin you're going to make on it.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you're going to break even on it. Because sometimes you might want a high tier item that is $1,200 on your campaign, and you know you're only going to make $1,250 on it, and the $50 is also going to be gone because of the labor it's going to take to do it. But it also is that coup d'etat, thing where it's like, great, this is me saying this is the best package I got, and I want to give I want something that kind of makes somebody stop for 10 seconds. So what is that like? Because I think that's also a problem right now, where you got to know what you can and can't buy and spend on your campaign.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have connections for certain things, that helps. Like for me with my apparel, the company that I work for is a apparel company that I can get a discount on. So that helps me with my profit margin, and how I can offer, nice swag, like embroidered stuff, and like it's so that's helpful for me.
I could trade if I was to do a comic. I might be able to trade and get a better discount on printing for 50 ad spots, where all of a sudden I might be able to get a 30 or 35% discount for ad spots, which also might help reduce costs.
Right.
Versus getting a 15% discount. And it might not add up, but all of a sudden, if I'm printing another $1,000, that's $350 at a massive discount.
And that's another thing too, is like, don't settle on one printer. Like, don't rest on your laurels. Get like quotes every time. Because if let's say you have 3 printers that you've worked with, and the lowest bidder, if quality is equal, right, and you get the lowest bidder, then you're saving yourself at least a couple thousand, especially if you're doing large print runs.
No, I also think that people need to understand what they can afford and what they can't afford. You could have a brand new artist who charges $100 for a cover, or you could have a veteran, and I mean, Paul Green's expensive. If your campaign is only going to be doing what you think is only going to be doing 8K, you might not be able to afford $1,200 or $1,400 for a cover artist.
Oh yeah, I mean, you kind of have to know your limit, for sure. Like especially like for me, like you said, I know my limit of covers. I try to have my usuals that I use every time, and then I try to fill it with new people that I'm testing out. But then I always try to go for one big name, to help supplement and bring in an audience. Plus, I want, to be synonymous with like, certain artists as well, say, hey, I'm not just this little guy, I'm a player in this field. You know what I mean? So that's things you have to consider, but your budget also has to be where you're not coming out of pocket either, because you need to be able to fulfill, you need to be able to ship, you need to be able to get the stuff to your backers, or this whole thing is a bust.
I agree. I mean, right now, one of the goals, whether I accomplish it or not, and I haven't really spoken about it, is that I want to do my own variant, because I'm obviously on Whatnot now. I'm on eBay, and I'm definitely doing one show a week on Whatnot, and I haven't sold anything yet, but it's slowly going to work. I'm gaining some followers, and I'm having a good time for about 45 minutes every Friday night. And I'm not looking for it to work today. I'm looking for it to, be a consistent thing, but clearly I need my own variant. And I'm looking at ideas, I'm looking at where to go, I'm looking at artists, and I'm looking at also price point. And it's the idea that I could do a 50 just straight out trade dress and virgin, 25 trade, 25 this, and it'll run me like 950 to 1150, which isn't terrible. And I'll make maybe like 1600 on it after, and then fees are going to be mine. So I'll clear, my money back and maybe like 300 if I'm lucky, 250, 300, give or take, with art and everything, and it'll be fine. But I'm also looking at the saying, if I'm going to do it anyway, maybe going to 100 print run, and doing some foils, extending the trade dress, extending the virgin runs, and then doing some lava foils and a metal. And then obviously you can get some special stuff out of that, depending on what you want to go even further with that. All of a sudden, it goes from maybe being like 1150 to being about 1950. But the price of it all selling also goes much higher, where we're looking at selling a foil for $60 a pop, and you got 20 of those. Yeah. So like, that's where this gets very complicated. I also feel is that understanding that maybe you do want to go a little bit out of pocket and print a bunch more books, because this way you have more product.
Oh yeah. And that's what I did with the kids book. I went further. I printed more copies of it than a lot more copies, just because I figured, one, it's the first of the series if I decided to continue it, and if I didn't have a stock, I wouldn't be able to go to cons and sell them there and build up an audience.
Did you also feel that you got a better price because you were printing more?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like offset printing, is you save exponentially, and the profit margin then, like, if let's say eventually I do sell out all the books, then I'm well over what I paid for it.
Because I think that's the other thing too, is that if you can offset print, and you can print 3,000 copies of your book, and it's going to suck initially. And I think that's the other thing too, is that I think a lot of people are just operating on a very tight shoestring, and I don't think that they understand that. I'm not saying go beyond your means or put your family or whatever else in financial harm's way, but sometimes you have to, because if especially on an issue one. So if you're doing, if you're planning to be around for 8 issues or 50 issues, it might make sense, if you're going to put issue 1 on every single campaign, to figure out how to offset 2,000.
Exactly. Because the issue then, like, what happens if you run out before you get to that last of the story arc? You know what I mean? Then you're like, oh crap, now I can't get new readers on. I'm
not even thinking about new readers. I'm just thinking about that all of a sudden. I mean, I don't know what 2,000 or 3,000 of an issue 1 if somebody was to print offset, but what is it, like 80 cents a book? Around there, maybe 60,
80, 89 ish.
We'll put it at $1. Okay, we'll put it at $1, right? So now I want to pick an easier number to do math with for a reason, because I think it's going to prove the point quicker. For those who need to hear it, because you and I both get the point, but pretty much if you're selling your indie book, because if you can offset and it's going to run you, let's say it's going to run you $2,400 for 3,000 copies of your book, you can then go and sell that book for $10 on your campaign. And now you have a competitive price point for your indie book where everybody else might be trying to sell that book for 15. And if then all of a sudden you're offset printing, or you could even sell it for like $8, and now you have a massively competitive price point and you're still making plenty of money. And that's where I think, and because all of a sudden for $8, I might be interested. And then you charge me what, $6 shipping? We're talking about $14 delivered to my door.
Yeah. Whereas like for me, like mine is like one flat, like $15. That includes like the shipping, the book, the digitals, all that stuff.
That's fine too. That's
Yeah.
fine too. What I'm getting at is that the cheaper you make something,
Yeah,
so
the
the
more
cheaper you
people.
get a product for. You can
Yeah, oh
pass.
yeah, because I'm guilty of that too. Because like when I look at a campaign, I'm like, oh, they have a 24-page book like I do, but they're charging like with shipping everything's total like $25. I'm like, I might just get the digital.
I mean, it's a problem because again, this kind of leads into where we're going here anyway. Is that
Mhm.
I don't know about you, but I am economically fucking tapped out. I'm economically tapped out for a lot of reasons, and I'm a little bit different because I pumped a lot of money into merch. The economy is not doing great. My business has slowed down significantly by probably about a third in the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I am 33% down, but I have way more merch, and I think I have good merch. I'm carrying things, and I'm figuring out the price point. I also have a lot more competition in my business right now. And so a lot of my margin has been cut down by 25%. And my rate of selling that stuff has also been cut down. So I'm getting squeezed. I'm not going bankrupt. I owe no debt to anybody. It just sucks. And I don't think it's just me. I think Kickstarter collectively, I think comics in general, I think people are being squeezed for a lot of reasons. And COVID had a lot of money and a lot of liquidity was in the market. And now I think a lot of liquidity is out of the market.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of people got relief checks. A lot of people weren't commuting to work. A lot of people weren't putting gas in their cars as much. And now people are doing that, or they're not riding the train. Now they are. I think bars are open. I think sporting events are open. I think concerts are back. I think cons are back. And so I think people have way less money.
Yeah. It's back to normal spending at this point. With the economy, like cost of living's up. So like groceries, gas, everything's still up right now. So yeah, no, I definitely, I've seen that, and I noticed that, a lot more people are buying digitals or getting just the standard tiers, which is fine. Like for me, I like knowing that I have a high backer count, because the more readers I get, the more reason for me to keep doing it. Because if I'm out there and I only have like so many backers and they're dropping off and nobody's interested, then what's the point of doing it, right?
So let's actually talk about that a little bit, because I don't know what your breakdown is at the moment, but I was listening to a bunch of different people, and they said their digital backers are much higher lately.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not complaining, but they're like, wait a second, like a third of my backers are digital compared to the last campaign I did where it was 30%. So it's been increased by 3%. And 3% might not seem like a big number, but if it's 3%, and those 3% are returning backers, but they're not buying physicals, and that might be a $15 swing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it looks like on your campaign, but I don't think the people who I spoke to and said it on their stream are necessarily. I don't think they're the exception. I think there's a
No,
lot.
definitely not. It's common. I each campaign, my digital backers have increased.
So when did that start? Did that start recently, or has that been a trend that's been going? Because that's what I think is really interesting.
It's been great. Like it's a constant growth each. So within the last a year or two, I think each campaign within the last year or two, I've seen more and more and more and more and more.
Because I find it interesting, because then I don't know if it's necessarily in your case the economy. Then it could just be that people are preferring digital for a lot of reasons. It's cheaper. They want to read more comics. They don't know if they like the product, or maybe a bunch of people say, look, I'm not a comic collector, I'm a comic reader. and it could be a shift in that trend.
It
Or
could be, but I've also, a lot of my, like, the people that I've talked to who are my regulars are saying, have even said money's tight. They're coming to get the digital because they want to keep reading the story, but they don't have the money for, the physical. They can then they'll come back and get like in the add-ons later. You know what I mean? So like it's I think it's a little bit of both. It could be not. You have the people who prefer reading digitally because they're moving into the digital age, and then there's also the people who see it more as an economical choice.
Nah, this is interesting because I sell high-end books and I sell expensive books. So, for me, it's very important that I look at Kickstarter, I look at comic shops, I look at even what price points things are selling at, because it's clearly something's up in my business. 2 years ago, I was doing way better and it was much easier and there was less competition. And I think it's fascinating what's going on in this, sector. And also, I mean, I noticed a lot of campaigns are struggling. And also, I noticed which campaigns are working well. And I don't even know if they're working well because of the story or the covers or the topic they're dealing with. And I think it's interesting. And I mean, I have my opinion on it, and I don't want to corrupt you with my opinion. And I'll tell you my opinion after you tell me yours. But where do you think that's going? Because clearly there is something up with people who were doing well and were killing it, and now they're not, and they're having a harder time funding. And people who used to fund in 3 days are now taking 6.
Again, I think, there's a lot more Kickstarters out there. So I think that's part of it. There's a lot of interest in a lot of backers want to be able to try and get everything. So I think, again, so like, let's say right now there's 300 campaigns out there, right? 2 years ago, let's say there was only 150. So you had the same amount of backers spending their money across 150. Now it's being diluted because there's 300. So like where they could spend more on like, the higher end covers, they're like, oh, well, I'm tapped out on this and that. I want to have all 300 of these. I'm going to just go digital. This will be my favorite one. I'm going to definitely buy this physically. You know what I mean? Like it's more, they have to pick and choose more where they want to put their bang for their buck.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I have a different opinion. I think people are tapped out. I
Well,
think
again, that's related to that because they want to try and do more, but they don't have the money to throw out.
I think people are tapped out from comics. I think people have also read a lot of bad shit. And I think people have said, I have backed 50 comics and 35 of them were average and 15 were great. And I just spent $1,000. And I spent $1,000 and $700 of that was average. And I was expecting more.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, okay, I'm going to be pulling massively back because look, I mean, I'm not going to name names, and I like a bunch of people, and I like some of the people that their books were just bad.
I hope I'm not one of those.
I mean, no. You're supposed to, but like, I'm like, if I'm spending 20, 40, 50 bucks on your book, like, it's a lot of money when I go down to my comic shop in the dollar bin for $1 and get 20 bucks. And I don't feel great after I read your shitty book. Like, not your shitty book, but like the people's books. Right. I enjoy Nightwolf, and I enjoyed the first issue of Snowpaw. I didn't read the second one or the third one yet. I've been lazy. I don't even know if you sent it to me, and I'm poor and broke. But that's not the point here. But like, the point is that it's like that's also what I think is part of the problem is that a bunch of people have read a bunch of people's books and said, I just spent a lot of money and this wasn't good. Like, what am I doing here? And then I don't think it helps that the big two are struggling with this. You go in, and I was speaking to somebody, I could walk into a comic shop, buy 6 DC books and buy 6 Marvel books, and I will be lucky if 50% of them are good. I will be lucky.
Yeah, I stopped reading the big two a couple of years ago because I didn't want to waste my money on crap stories anymore. and I've been picking up a lot of Kickstarter books, and I agree. There's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad, and then there's a lot of in between. I'm not a critic and I'm not a reviewer, so I'm not, and I don't like, I know which ones that I'm going to continue to read and which ones.
I mean, it also goes back to the idea that also with Kickstarter, and I don't know how you feel about this, but there are people who are late by 6 months.
Yeah.
And if you've had my money for 6 months and now you're late another 6 months, you've had my money for a year.
Yeah.
Just so everybody understands, if I am giving you $100 and you say you're gonna get me your book in a year, you're not costing me $100. You're costing me about $110 because I could put that $100 into my high yield Apple savings account and get 4.5% annually that gets compounded every single month, which means it's more than $4.50. It's more like almost like $4.08, $108. Wow, I can't think today. I knew it was on the tip of my tongue, but the point is that that's what you're costing me, and then you get me your book. But because you were late by a year, and I gave you my money, your book, you got $100. Kickstarter took $13 out of that, give or take. You still had to ship it to me. I get all that. You still had to produce it.
Yeah.
But it's not $100 it cost me. Your book.
Yeah, and I think that too is another thing. With being late or not ever showing up, and then people like there was one creator. I don't want to name names, and I'm not going to.
We can name them.
I'm not that guy. But anyway,
tell me after.
Yeah, I will. But he still hasn't delivered a book from 2019. And
it's offensive. How dare him?
But then the problem is he come back through another publisher. But he was the writer, but another publisher put out the book instead of it wasn't under his name, it was under the publishing name, but he was the writer. And I'm like, I'm not backing this because I know dude, but other people were backing it, not aware of the situation.
And it says a question, and people should actually question that publisher and say, hey, by the way, person A.
Did you know? Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing with publicists. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm going to start calling people out. And I want to make people uncomfortable. I really do. I want to make people uncomfortable. And I did something to somebody. I called them out, and the person got very uncomfortable. They got very upset with me. But I'm like, you didn't deliver your product to me from 2 years ago. Why are you upset? You have my money. I should be upset. You shouldn't be upset.
You and every backer.
The 270 of us should all be upset with you. You don't have a right to be upset, man. You didn't deliver your product. And if he's using a publicist, if it comes out, and I got no problem burning bridges, because I don't think I'm in the wrong here. I don't.
No, that's sitting. People don't want to call anybody out. They don't want to hurt, step on any toes. But
I'm beyond that. You know what is? I'm used to making omelets. I like making omelets. And last time I checked, make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. Now I will only make omelets if it's from a hen house that doesn't have a rooster. Because in order for the egg to be fertilized, you need a rooster.
Oh, duh.
So hens will lay eggs without a rooster. I don't want to risk that, and that's all I'm going to say, because while the rooster protects the hens, I think a fence will do the trick perfectly fine too. I think a fence around my little hen house, me and my hens, we're going to be great. I'm going to treat my hens beautiful, and I can't wait to have a dairy farm too. You all laugh at me. I'm buying a farm, guys, in Oklahoma. I can't wait to buy a farm. It's going to be great. Me and my Bitcoin are going to buy me a whole farm. Don't worry, you can come visit.
Oh, thanks.
I still like you. It's all right. See, and then I'll figure out how to pay my taxes. So I'm gonna buy a big farm, and I'm gonna put 6 windmills to generate electricity, and then I'm gonna lease it out, and then it's gonna cover my taxes and pay for my house on my farm. And then because I want to do some farming. I'm going to get some solar panels and I'll lease out half the farm for solar panels, farming, and I'll grow my wheat and I'll grow some hops so I can make my beer. and I have the name for it. I'm going to license the name from Yu-Gi-Oh! It's called Flaming Swordsman Beer, approved by Joey. I don't know how I can lose. And every 6-pack comes with a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card.
Nice.
I think this is a great idea.
I'm surprised somebody hasn't already jumped on that.
I'm shocked too. But oddly enough, I learned that Flaming Swordsman, which is Joey's like signature monster, is a fusion monster, and it's not even that good. Who knew? but sorry, we do this on the show. We get off on tangents. But it drives me massively annoying, and it's a big pet peeve of mine that nobody calls anybody out, and I think people should be called out professionally. And I think it's an issue, and I think I'm going to start doing it because I'm going to have no friends in this industry, and I can't wait. And I got no problem. Somebody who's big, why should they be immune from this? If you don't deliver your book and you are more than 6 months late, you are late. And my argument, and this is how I feel, and I got no problem being quoted on this and being EFAP'd, whatever it is, my argument is that I can't show up. If I'm 5 minutes late and it's 9:05, I don't get in trouble at my job. Because everybody understands that if you're there most of the time at 8:50, you're supposed to be there at 9, and you're late maybe by 10 minutes, shit happens in life.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was late every single day, it would be a problem and it would be unacceptable. But one time I was late by 25 minutes, and my boss was like, "Yo, you okay?" I said, "Hey, I'm sorry. It was a really bad car crash. Apparently a truck tipped over."
Ooh.
And I took a picture. He's like, "Oh, no worries, man. I get it." You were in traffic for 35 minutes staring at a truck flipping over. So most people understood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely, life events that happen, but like, if you're just like bad at money and you can't deliver because you spent the money, that's an issue.
Or you don't, I mean, I'm going to say something. You don't have a carrot and a stick with your artists. I'm sorry to say it that way, but if you're very like, "Oh, no worries, man. You didn't do the pages this week. It's all good, man. Oh no, you didn't even start working on the pages and it's month 3. We're all good. Oh man, you just had to go to Hawaii for 3 weeks and go surfing with your kid, bro. Was it awesome?" Like it's like if I hire an artist to do something, I'm like, where the fuck is page 1, man? It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Where the hell is page 1? I'm not going to bust your balls on Christmas, but you got 3 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I need like 4 pages here.
Mm-hmm.
Like where the fuck is it? Or do I need to hire somebody else to do your job?
Yeah, there should be more than a page a week for sure.
I know. I understand. Like somebody's not going to work between Christmas and New Year's. Because I'm not going to make somebody work between Christmas and New Year's. It sucks because I work between Christmas and New Year's. But like, I don't get it. But again,
but then like a lot of like some artists, like this is like if they're doing a part-time deal, like for like creators like me, I have a full-time job. Vacation time for me between Christmas and New Year's, I'm working on this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so that's for me, like I don't expect them to work on Christmas. I don't expect them to work on New Year's. But if I'm available and working, and I'm paying you, I expect it.
So I take a different approach, right? I'm like, look, it's Christmas, so I'm not gonna. If I was to hire an artist, I'm gonna build the schedule knowing that week's off. So I'm gonna tell them, say, look, this week's off. I'm not gonna force you to work. If you want to get it done during that time, that's your parameter. But I'm not gonna.
That's it. Like for me, like I don't have a like, oh, well, you have to work kind of situation. Me, it's like, all right, I have a deadline. I expect you to make it. If you don't make it, depending on the circumstances, I can give you an extension. You know what I mean? But like it gets to a point where I'm like, all right, this is a hard deadline. This is now, you cannot go past this.
So I have a writing gig that I do for free. And I needed 3 extra days for who I'm writing for free. Like, yeah, no worries, man. I said, my mom just had surgery. I'm exhausted. I would like to sleep, and I'm stressed out. Person's like, yo, I get it. You're usually on time, and if we hold the magazine thing for an extra 2 days, no worries. I got it done, got it to them, and it was good. The whole thing was great. And it was some of my best writing that I've done in a while. So the point is that I enjoyed writing what I wrote, and I'm pretty solid with it. But again, that's the point, is that sometimes people just need a few extra days. No worries. But again, I don't get it. I don't get why people just can't get me their shit. I'm waiting on a lot of things from a lot of people. I don't know if you saw that post. It was a while ago that I'm owed like $25,000 worth of comics.
I do remember seeing that, yeah.
And then the people were like, what do you mean, man? And then I broke down. People were like, oh, you're not fucking around. Like you actually are owed real money. Like a lot of people, I don't think were ready for me to break that thing down. Ben Dunn was like, holy shit. Sam Quinn was like, what the hell? Like you actually understand what you're owed. I'm still owed a lot of books from people. And I'm annoyed because and it's not 25K anymore, but it's probably about 12.
It's still a significant amount, yeah.
I mean, I added stuff in there and I got a bunch of it, but like I'm like, great. Like I am still owed a lot of product. And I don't get why it's so fucking difficult to get me my product. I just don't get it.
I think people tend to overextend themselves.
Fair enough.
And for me, like like being like, I hate being late, or even like, you know, for me, like right now I'm launching Snowpaw, right? Well, my next one's going to be Nightwolf Volume 2, but that's going to be like probably 6 months between printing from and coming in from China. Whereas like I'll have Snowpaw fulfilled. I'll be waiting on the Volume 2, but I'm still going to launch Nightwolf 9 because that's a floppy and I print domestically. So even that's going to be hanging over my head, but I know eventually it's going to come and I'm going to deliver. But it's still going to be in the back of my mind going, man, that boat better not tip over.
I mean, you're insured, right?
Oh, of course.
I mean, you don't really care about the people on the boat. You just care about your boat being dry, right?
No.
I just get to the lowest denomination the quickest. Personally, if I was like shipping a car from China, I'd be like, as long as my car is fine, you put some floaters in the thing. If that thing just floats right off the boat, tips over, I'm cool with that. I mean, I don't know. As long as my thing arrives perfectly fine, I don't really care how it gets. If they just want to put a little like motor on it and have a speedboat retrieve from the bottom of the ocean and the car's dry, I'll be like, all righty, guys. No harm, no foul. My Lambo is beautiful. I cried. I don't know if you know what happened. There was a fire on a boat from China, and the boat like was like sort of on fire, so they had to push all these Lambos off of the boat in the containers.
Oh,
and
wow.
I cried. I was devastated. I'm like, I guess I'm getting a scuba team to go get me a Lambo. Here we go. You know, I mean, what it'll cost me like what, 10,000 to get a container ship up there from the bottom of the ocean, and then the Lambo, and then you got to figure out. I mean, I'm sure the body of the Lambo is fine, and maybe parts of the component are fine. Those shipping containers are sealed tight, right?
You would hope.
I mean, if there's a Lambo in there, you would really hope, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think the Lambo would be fine. And so now I'll get a Lambo for 10K. Oh my God, I'll drive the thing up in Cali all day. I'm sorry, officer. I just retrieved my Lambo from the bottom of the ocean. I'm sorry for speeding. I just wanted to make sure it worked. I was like, sir, what? It'd be great. Like, that's the craziest excuse I heard. I'm just gonna give you a warning this time. Next time, try to keep your car under 200 miles an hour.
No, that's wishful thinking.
Sir, that is the worst excuse I've ever heard, but you made me laugh today.
Sir, get out of the car. Put your hands on the hood.
Yeah, right. or better yet, if you really want to do something fun, what you do is that you get pulled over and your windows are tinted. You have a Batman mask in your car, and you just put it on right over. You're like, oh, officer, is there? And you do it in a deep voice, like the Batman voice. Oh, sir, is there a problem? And you just, it'll be great. Have you ever seen the YouTube video of the police pull over Batman?
Yeah.
It's great. and you can hear the cop. There's a guy driving around wearing in a Batmobile dressed as Batman, and he like touches his radio when he does it. I'm pulling him over. I'm a little concerned. Oh man, this is tangent night apparently.
Apparently, yeah, we're just going off all directions.
No. We should probably bring back the Nightwolf. Yeah, no. But I definitely think that there are massive problems on Kickstarter. I think you're not the only one who's struggling to fund. I
wouldn't even say that I'm struggling though. Like, I mean, I'm right there. I'm like right on the edge, and
okay.
I'm not. I have 15 days.
You're slowed down, and it's going at a nice jog versus we're sprinting to the finish. No, we are sprinting to the finish line. It is a nice run in the park, is how you're funding.
Which is fine. I have more backers at this point than I did in my last campaign, so I'm not sad.
Well, I am sad for you. No, but I think it is important to understand that it used to be that you would fund within 7 days, sometimes people, or 3 days, and now I think from a lot of people it is the last 2 days you fund, or what winds up happening is that maybe you're now going to fund and you're going to have 10 days to go above your funding.
Well, I mean, tomorrow is the start of my second week, and I'm less than $700 away from funding. So, I mean, I'm not upset with over 352 backers.
Well, you're better than me. I was not happy with my campaign, and oh my god!
And I'm also too like my first couple campaigns were no picnic. Like when getting so this is compared to them, like I'm already like better off at this point where I was like even like at the beginning of my Kickstarter career.
I've made more money on sponsorships than I made on my campaign. Which is so much better. Which is just so much better. I have less headache, and I'm lazy. And when I get really aggressive with that, I will make way more money. And I'm actually becoming cheaper and cheaper, which is crazier. I'm making more money by being cheaper.
More people can afford, yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting, and also what I'm finding is that people are very unhappy with ad space right now. It's so interesting. People are very unhappy, in that sector, and I just know horror stories. But I digress. But yeah. So I think it's fascinating, and obviously comics are getting interesting right now too with everything. And then you have a bunch of people working on your books. And I'm lazy because I did not do pictures. I'm too tired. It's been a week. It's only Tuesday. But I know you have Mog Park doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who she is. I'm very confused. That's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke in a lot of ways because she's the interior artist.
Yes, she's the interior artist. She was a formal concept artist for Game of Thrones. And yeah, I believe she was on with us the first time we had Snowpaw.
One of them, yeah. She had the lone wolf and cub stuff in her backdrop.
Ironic.
Great. I mean, it's the Mandalorian. It is the Mandalorian. They basically they stole lone wolf and cub, and they just put Baby Yoda and a better Boba Fett in there. That's what they did. And people say Disney ruined Star Wars. No. Disney took the laziest position ever and turned it into something amazing. So this is why and people say Disney ruined Star Wars. No, everybody. Disney stole an idea that was great, and they made it greater. They, dare I say, used the Force. So
I'm pretty sure they were referring to Mandalorian when they said Disney ruined Star Wars.
I mean, let me put it this way: if 50% of the stuff we do in Star Wars is great, and the other 50 sucks, that's a victory. Because what's the rule? Me and Mike Brown were speaking about this. 90% of everything sucks. So statistically, if you read 10 comics, 9 of them are going to suck. In the law of large numbers, if everybody bought 300 comics If me and 10 other people or 9 other people, so 10 of us went to a comic shop and we all bought 300 different comics a piece, 2,700 of those comics are statistically going to suck. 300 of those are going to be fantastic. And that because as you go through more and more numbers, that's what happens. And so there's a reason why a lot of shows get 2 or 3 seasons. They're average or they suck. And then the shows that do really well get more than that, but even still, there gets a point where they become the suck. But I digress. That's far from your coverage. You brought in a new person, Jaden Lanning.
Yes, so Jaden Lanning.
She's new. She's
very
green.
She is. She was actually 17 when she did this cover. She had recently turned 18, but she did a cover for Nightwolf as well. But yeah, no, I mean, I can't wait to see her career progress with how much raw talent she has and self-taught at that.
And then I think you did Vincinia Lindsay, I want to say.
Yes, she's originally from New York, but she lives in Youngstown, Ohio. Her and I actually don't live that far from each other. We met at a local con. She does some great like anime style stuff, and I wanted to have like that kind of a feel. Basically, when her and I were talking about themes, I shared something with her. I was like, "This, I want to see something like this," and that she produced that gorgeous piece, and I couldn't be more happy with it.
And then obviously you have Carlos Herrera. I get it wrong every time.
Errara.
Fair enough. I tried. That's all I'm gonna say. And he's the main artist on Nightwolf.
Yes, yeah. And he so he and I developed even like the character designs for Snowpaw together as well. He's been with me since Nightwolf from the very beginning. I had to have him involved, and of course, his artwork and is top notch. So he's kind of I kind of call him my creative director with this.
And you got Chris Williams, and I think Chris Williams done stuff for Xanoscope. I think he's done stuff for Big Dog Inc.
Yeah.
And he's been around the block.
Yeah, he's done Good Boy, other stuff like that. Yeah, he's done some great stuff, and he's been doing covers for me since 2019. And
then you have Joseph. I'm not gonna get the name. I'm sorry.
Joseph Schmolke. Yeah. He's he was with Black Caravan under Scout until they separated. He's done a lot of stuff like within like the indies as well. He's done a cover for The Last Ronin #1. So he does great work.
Yeah, no, Scout's fun. Scout's a lot of fun. They have a partnership or an investment partner, as I like to call it.
I was like, what is happening with that?
they labeled it as X when it's Y. Anybody who is a serious investor would understand what happened. Anybody who is anywhere near that sector understood exactly what happened. Is that Scout needed money, and Global Media, which is a subsidiary of an OTC stock holding group, basically said, we have a semi-media investment sector in our portfolio, and we have no problem buying a stake in Scout. And that's exactly what happened. With Scout just doesn't want to admit it because it's not great. Because it is evident that Scout needed capital. And I'm willing to put, I don't have evidence of that, but that's what it's looking like. Because I don't think a OTC stock company that holds a media position, that 2 or 3 people from Scout who I know shot me a well thought out press release that told me everything I needed to know without telling me anything.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to put real money. I will be very, very shocked if it's not a loan or if it's not equity. And I would be very surprised that at some point that this group doesn't buy Scout
outright. Yeah.
I think it's coming, and I think this is just a step in that direction. And the only reason why I know this is because this is kind of how the Sony Crunchyroll Funimation deal went down, which was what, 3 years ago, or 1.3 billion. So I'm pretty sure on that. Just nobody wants to admit it. Again, it goes back to calling out things. Somebody was saying something. I said, "You mean investment partner?" I think I'm gonna put that
partner.
No, it could be your investment partner. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what I think. I'm sorry that I ruined Nightwolf getting into Scout, by the way.
I don't think that was ever on the table.
It was till 5 minutes ago. I'm sorry. Black Caravan, though, is more than happy. So many things I can say. But you probably it'd be great to be in comic jobs for you, but you're doing just fine with this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in some, like ones who've backed or like local ones, but yeah, I mean, it would be great to be in more, but I'm definitely, for me, it's I'm limited in time, and I'm, like as you said, I'm doing very well.
The only thing is that a publisher would just open up that into Diamond, but even still, that's not a guarantee anymore.
Well, no, I mean, I would still be doing the same amount of promoting myself. Like, it wouldn't even be like, like if I were to go through a publisher and to distribute, like I'd still be doing the same thing I'm doing now, except at a different, venue.
Yeah, no. What I'm talking about is just getting into Diamond, but that's a whole different ball game.
Well, with Diamond kind of in like
Diamond or Luna, or whatever. You get where I'm going with the question. Right?
Yeah.
So like I'll throw a name out there, like Antarctic Press. If Antarctic Press said, we're gonna help you figure out, and we're gonna buy previews for Nightwolf, and we're gonna champion it, and we're gonna get you into the ability to get into comic stores. You still gotta sell it, but somebody can order your book off of previews. That's a very different ball game.
Oh, but
that's also massively complicated, and there's a lot of money that gets sucked out of that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I wouldn't. If anything, it would just be the help with. I wouldn't expect like dividends or nothing. That's mostly like, if anything, it's marketing. Getting it into like a retailer is just.
So, I don't know if you know Paul Gomez.
Yes.
So Paul wants to be with either Antarctic Press or somebody else because he feels that it could get him a con table or open up a door at a con or help him become a guest at a convention. And I agree to some element with Paul, but I'm like, also, look, if you're good enough or you're selling or people are coming for you or you're promoting like crazy, a con will hit you up eventually.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been guested at a con before.
I have a philosophy as an interviewer, and I don't know if it applies exactly the same, but anybody I'm supposed to interview will somehow I will get access to. And it's happened so many times now that I'm like, great, how did I get person A, B, or C? But whatever it was just right time, right place, right asking. And that's how I feel. And then I'm just churning and churning and churning. And that's how I feel. So, if you're meant to be somewhere, it will happen.
Yeah.
If you put in the right work.
And that's kind of like also getting guested into a con is a catch-22. For me, I found that, yes, it was nice to be guested in, but you're also like not every con will be accommodating to like, for me, like I need basically like 2 tables to fill all my stuff, right? Whereas like most cons will give you one small like pro table and put you in a certain area with the other pros, and you may not get a lot of traction. For example, like this Chris Enoch was telling me this. I'm not sure if you know who he is or not.
Yeah, he's done stuff for Zenoscope.
Yeah. So
I know exactly who he is.
Yeah, he's done a cover for me as well, and he and I are actually only an hour apart. So we've like hung out before and at cons and other things. But he's told me that like, there's been times where like they put like the pros in an area with low foot traffic, and it wasn't worth like even the travel time to get there, you know? So it's like, then it's kind of a catch-22. Do you pay to be in a prime real estate to sell more? Or do you just like having that, like, hey, I've been guested at a con, and you know what I mean?
It's interesting where I don't want to press pass at a convention. I am not a press pass interviewer. I am not. It's not the way I am. I am way more in a Joe Rogan conversational ist interviewer, and I don't mind doing in person interviews. And eventually, when I build the studio, it's going to be set up for that if I wanted to. But again, I am not a press pass interview, and I see people doing like a 7-minute interview. I'm like, there's nothing of substance here. It's great that it got 20,000 views, but nothing was fucking accomplished. And all it was is that it was viewed, and it was viewed 20,000 times, but there's legitimately nothing that can be done with it. With this interview, I could do so much more, and I could have real conversations of not shying away from problems.
Mm-hmm.
I have plenty of controversial interviews that are fantastic, and I mean, if you look at the guests that I've had, I've interviewed everybody from crypto experts to porn stars. Like, again, no. Those are the best ones. When you ask porn stars about how they feel about men, oh my God, that thing is golden. A lot of them are not what you think. A lot of them say things. They're like, we don't find men to be very masculine lately. And I'm like, I agree. I'm over here, by the way. Yeah. If we were in a bar and somebody hit your ass, you're going to have to bail me out of jail because I'm going to knock his ass out. And she's like, not if I knock his ass out first. And then this was all caught on like the interview like last month. It was great. But the point is that I'm not a press pass interviewer. And even if I got a free ticket, it would be a disaster. It would be a disaster. Me doing press at a con would be a fucking disaster. So I completely get your position where I would rather, do my 3 panels or my 1 panel, get my free badge, and then just be done with it and do my own thing. But again, I don't even know if that's great. I honestly think you get what you pay for.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's just it. Like you could pay to be in the prime real estate, or you could go there for free and they'll put you where they want to put you and you risk not making money.
That's so interesting. This doesn't get spoken about, does it?
Not very often, though.
I think this is the problem, right? Everybody talks about being beneficial to cons and being, supportive and offering advice in comics. Yet this right here is actually legit advice and understanding business, and nobody has a real conversation about this.
Yeah, I mean, I've even paid extra to be out in the exhibitors, get out of Artist Alley or press area because they're not in prime real estate either half the time. If you go, but people are walking the exhibitors.
That's interesting too. That's interesting too. I mean, I really enjoyed Awesome Con when I was down in DC. And all I did was hang out around Artist Alley, and because CG and I explained to Awesome Con, but CGC right at the Artist Alley position, because where all the artists are is around that area within,
which makes sense. Yeah.
Instead, they put them at the other end of the con, and I'm like, you guys got to realize that I have a physical disability. I'm tired, and I just got this thing, which means you guys had to walk here. We have to walk back. How does this make any sense?
Well, keep in mind too, like the artist, you are in this business, so to speak. Whereas like the common reader may not. They're going to the vendors and looking through their short boxes or long boxes. They're not necessarily they don't still think, oh, an indie guy. I'm not looking for indie guys. I'm looking, that's a happy thing that happens. You know what I mean? Like I've talked to more people at cons who aren't necessarily looking for indie books. They're just like, oh, this looks cool. What is this? That's kind of like, where like and you want to be where those people are. You know what I mean?
In Artist Alley, you had people like Dave Johnson, you had Scott Snyder, you had Tom King, you had, Peter Tomasi, I think was there. You had Elias Chazudis there. You had Campbell there. Jessica Campbell had his own booth there. like all in this vicinity. So you had Keith Giffen there, you had Jim Starling there.
See, now that's a good setup then, because they have names drawing back there. Whereas like I've been to other cons where all the names are on the other side of the building, or the celebrities on the other side of the building, and the artists are in the back, and nobody's going there because they're like
they're really cool because you have celebrity aisle on one end of the con, artist alley. There's a huge gap between of just open space, and then you have artist alley. Then you have the exhibitors on the other on that end. It's all like
so they have to walk back and forth. Yeah, that's a good
alley in the center, but there's one main aisle that kind of separates a third of artist alley that cuts through, but you still have to walk past it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
super smart.
That is a good layout, and that's probably why Awesome Con is a very profitable con.
The only downfall is that when you put CGC on right at the end of the exhibitors on the other side, and you have Artist Alley in the center,
right? Yeah, that
makes no sense.
Yeah, that should be addressed. Yeah,
because that's just poor planning. And I explained, and then even also I was like, you got a point. You got a point. And I think the next year, I didn't go the next year, but I think that's what they did the next year is I think they moved it to more the center. Mm-hmm. So, but because the first time I went to Awesome Con, it was legitly at the edge of Artist Alley.
Yeah, they probably just put them there because they had an opening there.
That's probably what happened is that somebody didn't think.
Yeah.
It wasn't intentional. And I'm sure they were like, I'm sure CGC was like, guys, what the fuck? Like, everybody's getting so much more walking now, and this sucks. Like everybody probably was like,
yeah,
this is a bad idea.
Well, especially because if they have to witness and they have to bring the artist over there, leave their table.
So the witness goes to the artist's table.
Yeah, most times.
Yeah, and then it's fun. It's fun when you have artists who just show up as fans, and you know that they're showing up, and then you bring them to CGC's table. That's funny,
right?
That's really funny because somebody wanted a book. They also had a book from that artist, and like, dude, you brought him here? Like, what the fuck? Like, hey, it was a very dude's like, dude, like, how do you know him? Because apparently I knew somebody who was an artist, and he's like, yeah, we'll go to the table together. Don't worry about it, man. And like, he had to show his ID and everything. It was really funny. It was really funny. And the guy's like, dude, I'm trying to get a book signed by him too, and I have it right here. A crazy story happens at cons. But I digress. And then you got a bunch of other stuff in there. You could be a drawing supporting character. You could do the Omega tier, the Alpha tier, the Beta tier, the Super Duper tier. If you would like a Scooby snack, that could be arranged. I don't know how far we're going to get with that one. That'll be on me. How does that sound? For $500, if you want a Scooby snack, I'll take care of you. You're just gonna put that in there. If you like a Scooby snack by Pop Anime Comics, $500, it's all yours. I didn't say what type of Scooby snack it'll be. It'll just be a Scooby snack. It might be one for you. It might be for your dog. It might be the whole box. We don't know. I'm just trying to get you funded. Yeah. So obviously, I think we talked about a lot of stuff, but I am curious because we are in a very, very terminal situation right now in the world, and it's very difficult. There's a lot of stuff going on, but how do you feel about WrestleMania? Because this is what we all want to know. Because we had Cody and Seth on night one, I think, versus The Rock and Roman. Then we have Roman versus Cody, and then night one determines this stuff that happens on night two. And I don't know, does Cody need to finish the story? Does Seth need to lose the belt? Is The Rock going to screw Cody? Is Roman going to retain? These are the questions that we all must answer and find out.
Honestly, I haven't been following wrestling in years, but I did hear that The Rock did return, and I'm like, wow, like that just.
Yeah, it's finally come back to Philly. Yeah. Maybe the bell will be fixed this time.
Maybe.
This is all me and my friend talk about on Friday night. I get really, really hammered every Friday night, and we speak about wrestling, and then there's nothing going on in wrestling. We're talking about movies every Friday night. We did the A-Team, and we're doing Mystery Men. like next Friday.
Nice.
It's amazing. And then right before WrestleMania, we're going to talk about WrestleMania extensively. But like legitimately, oh my God, it's just. I asked everybody this because we all want to know what everybody's thinking because everybody's a wrestling fan right now.
Yeah,
and you're gonna watch it, right?
No.
Really, you're not gonna watch it? You're not...
I haven't followed wrestling in years. Like I can't even tell. I think I was in college the last time I actively watched it. So I don't even know who's still in, like, or who's in, who's out, who's what. I'm like, I would have to like watch a whole, like a bunch
you
of
need to
like,
watch the whole thing.
catch
The only
up.
thing you need to know, genuinely, there's like 3 matches you need to watch. That's it. The only thing that really matters is that WWE has pivoted unbelievably with the whole problem with Vince, and then they got out of that, and then they still secured their $5.5 billion deal with Netflix. While dealing with all this, like, you can't make this shit up, right? You can't make this shit up. And then me and my friend, what we want to do is that we're thinking Vince McMahon, the movie, Bradley Cooper as Vince. I'm telling you, I think Bradley Cooper could be a fantastic Vince McMahon.
That would be funny.
And then Charlie Theron or Threese or whatever her name is. Or
Oh yeah.
I want her as Linda. People think I'm crazy on that one, but that's who I'm going with because she can act. And I'm telling you, she could pull off Linda McMahon like nobody else.
I mean, she is a very method actor. Like what she did with Monster, like, and all that stuff. Like, it's a complete transformation.
I'm telling you, she could do it. She can do it. And you'll doubt me. And then when you see it, you'll be like, get it. I get it completely. She will make a mean Linda McMahon. The real question is that I think that Paul Levesque should play Triple H. I think it's a stretch here. That I think it could be done. I'm just saying that I think that guy could pull a mean Triple H off.
That would be interesting to see.
I mean, people think I'm crazy for that suggestion, but I think it can work. I think it's time to play the game, though. But on that note, I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself, promote everything you do, everything you got going on. Obviously, you talk about your wolf pack. You talk about the kids' book. Anything else you got? The floor is yours.
Right on. Yeah. So, for those of you who are new to Lone Wolf Comics, basically, right now we're running a campaign for Snowpaw issues 1 through 3. You can get all 3 issues. You can get caught up on the entire Lone Wolf Comics universe. You can get all of the issues of Nightwolf or the trade paperback volume 1, as well as issues 5 through 8. You can get that through, so you can see the URL right there, lonewolfcomics.com/snowpaw. That'll redirect you to the Kickstarter itself. And also, if you go to lonewolfcomics.com/offer, you can enter your email and get yourself a free digital copy of the first issue of Nightwolf, just to see what's going on and see if you like, check out the series. And we, as Andrew mentioned, we do have a kids book called The Wolfpack Pups. It's a Halloween trick-or-treat tale about 2 young pups going out trick-or-treating. These little werewolf pups don't get to go out very often, but when they do, they're going to go out and have some fun and get some candy. And then they run into a pair of twin witches that cause a little bit of Halloween mischief and turn Nightwolf into a voodoo doll plush toy. But yeah, you can find that at wolfpackpups.com. You can find me on the socials at Lone Wolf Comics on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find me personally at Rob Multari, same Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Or, I mean, if you don't want to call Twitter anymore, you want to call it X or whatever it is now, that's your prerogative. But yeah, no, you can, like I said, check it out and join the Wolf Pack.
Yeah, and I'm just going to keep saying it. You have to support what you want to see get made. And in particular, when people have comics or projects on Kickstarter, crowdfunder, Zoop, Fund My Comic, Fund My Indie, whatever that thing is called. I always get the name wrong. You need to go support it because that's how these books get made. And then furthermore, if money's tight and everybody understands that money's tight, ways how to other support with how money is following people on social media, sharing out links, engaging with people, liking it, sending somebody who might like it, checking it out, all that stuff, like an Instagram posts, Facebook posts, the whole shebang, just mentioning it. If you do a stream, can also help. Sharing out links, as I stated before, or putting links in your descriptions on things, massively helpful. And then everything that I got going on, obviously I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter /X, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook, Pop Anime Comics on TikTok. Oh my God, I love TikTok. TikTok's great. And hopefully it won't get banned because that'll be very upsetting. I am Pop Anime Comics on YouTube. I am Pop Anime Comics Collectibles on eBay. I am also on Whatnot. For those who want to know what I do on eBay, this is kind of my eBay thing right here. So looking for comics and collectibles, come shop with us on eBay. That link right there will bring you right to eBay, or it is in the description down below. And I do have this little puppy right up here, but I can't see it. Can you? I can't see it. It's really hard to see. I opened up the package like 2 days ago, and I felt like there was 10 things in there, but I couldn't see the cards. And then I contacted the company, and they're like, yeah, man, we can't see it either. We see what you have in your hand is some cards. We have our label there. We know it's not tampered with, but we can't see it either. And I said, I want my money back. But they said, what do you mean you want your money back? We can't see it. So therefore, we can't give you your money back. And then I said, F you to them. They said, no, why don't I just give you an AA? And then we finally agreed that something's there, but we don't know what's there. So that's what happened. Very confusing. But me and that company are doing great. Leaf Metal. Me and that company are great. I just ordered some other stuff from them. They're like, yeah, it's going to be great. I just ordered 2 goats. 2 goats being fed by Eli Manning. Too soon, everybody? Too soon?
But I don't.
I didn't make the card. It's Eli Manning feeding 2 goats. It's great. It's just so terrible. It's just I gotta sell out of those cards so quickly too. It's just crazy. But anyway, that's what I get going on. And then I am also on Whatnot because I have some exclusive books like this are only going to be sold on Whatnot. And so it is a hollow foil. They are in stock and on Friday night, and you can buy them right now if you would like them, everybody, that those are actually available. And every week I am only going to be releasing 3 and then 2 and then 1 until all 14 of them are gone because I'm keeping one for myself. And I have some other merch like that coming in that is super limited. I have some limited Shikaris and some other stuff coming. So again, a lot of stuff is going to be exclusive, and we are doing Mount Olympus Anime Night. So my books are a little bit pricey, but they're also what they go for on eBay. So I don't know what to tell you, but my Whatnots are fun. So come join us. Have a good time. And hopefully I can find you books that you want. And we're doing cosplay night, not this Friday night, but the week after. And then we're doing video game night. And let's just say that I have some very spicy Luigi as a raccoon thing.
The Tanuki?
Yes. But it's not Luigi. It's Larissa. And she's very inflated. Might be a good way to put it. Very inflated. I mean, let's just say that if you're stranded in the ocean, you would want to be stranded with her for a few reasons. It's an expensive book. That book's an expensive book. One of them's going for $250 on eBay right now. I'm asking like $150 for mine on eBay, and yeah, they're expensive books, everybody. I'm sorry, but I digress. I will give you the final word.
Yeah, like I said, go to lonewolfcomics.com/snowpaw and head over to the Kickstarter campaign. Find yourself a catch-up tier, or if you are already a member of the Wolfpack, find yourself a good cover that you like, and join us on the latest hunt.
Well, I don't think I could have said that any better myself, everybody, and I believe that is a